The generation of clean, non-polluting energy has arrived in New York. Hello, my name is McClure. For the past 30 years, I've made documentaries about issues that affect us every day. This summer, I was asked to look at wind energy in New York, to clarify the issues, and to examine some of the myths, so as to better inform you. This is what I learned. In September of 2004, the New York State Public Service Commission, known as the PSC, approved a Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS, after a year and a half of public discussion, comment submissions, and workshops involving over 100 organizations and businesses, with the goal of increasing the percentage of renewable electricity purchased by New York consumers from 19% to at least 25% by the year 2013. But that's only 25%. Where does New York get the rest of its electricity?
About 29%, almost a third of the electricity we use in New York comes from nuclear power. This power doesn't have air pollution impacts the way coal and natural gas facilities do, but a lot of people who are neighbors of nuclear plants have big concerns about safety and hazardous materials that last long after the power has been used. After you make the electricity from nuclear power, you have radioactive materials, and that's a problem we still haven't solved. We don't know how to make those materials safe for disposal, and they remain radioactive for a very long time. So until we solve that problem, a lot of people are not comfortable with nuclear power.
Fossil fuel power is how we've gotten most of our energy. But when we burn fossil fuels, first of all, they are in limited supply, and we are in danger of depleting those supplies over time. Secondly, they produce a whole series of harmful products. The ones that most people know about are the greenhouse gases.
19% is generated from renewables, primarily hydro. And really the only way to get from 19 to 25, which doesn't sound like a big jump, but when you look at the power it really is wind power. It's the only renewable out there that I think has the locations to be built, is environmentally friendly enough, and the technology is advanced enough to meet that goal.
Wind energy is sort of like the new hydro, where it's a clean technology, but it doesn't have anywhere near the same kind of environmental impacts, and it has no emissions, and can be distributed in many more areas around the state.
With the rising cost of traditional fuels, wind energy production is becoming very competitive. There are 4 existing wind farms in New York. Along with Wethersfield, one was erected on a farm in Madison, another along a ridgeline in Fenner, and the latest wind farm is called Maple Ridge and is located in Lowville. There have been several issues raised about wind turbines. Let's examine each of them. Do wind turbines make noise?
The noise, it's very little. I mean, it just depends on if the wind's really strong. You can hear a little puttering from them, but other than that, you can't hear really anything from them.
We're here in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, about 100 miles south of the New York border. What I have here to measure the noise level of the wind turbines is a thing called a sound level measurement device. It measures in decibels. In a normal conversation, when I talk, it should be in the 60 decibel range. If I whisper, it's about 30 decibels, and if I run a lawnmower, it's about 90 to 100 decibels. Let's measure the decibel level from about 150 yards from this wind turbine downwind.
Oh, the noise. There is no noise. We have never heard noise. I have taken the horses up there on rides. Yes, if you are right under it, you can hear a whoosh.
What we usually hear is wind. We live in Fenner, and that's why they built them here. We hear the wind in the trees all the time. And the calmest, foggiest night, we might hear a whoosh, just a little whoosh.
I hear the geese. I hear peepers at night. I hear crickets. I hear the little buzzers in the trees in the summertime. I hear traffic on the road in front of my house. I hear coyotes at night. I hear my children, I hear my neighbors, I hear dogs barking. I never hear the windmills, never.
I can go out at my house, and I'm 5.5 miles from the nearest railroad, and I can hear the railroads clicking on the track. Not the whistle, you hear that all the time, but you can actually hear the railroad clicking on the track. That's how quiet it is.
Do wind turbines kill birds and disturb wildlife? The American Wind Energy Association, or AWEA, studied this issue.
When AWEA and other sources look at bird mortality and they look at what can be attributed to wind power turbines and they compare that to other sources of mortality, such as automobiles, communication towers, smokestacks, feral cats, you name it, the wind power mortality is very small in a relative sense.
How many dead birds do you find beside your turbine?
None. We have an 1.5 acre pond where the Canadian geese and the mallard ducks nest. And they fly in and out of that pond and across the road to a pond that we have near our buildings, and there are no dead birds.
What about bats? Have you found any bats?
No.
Since the windmills have been constructed, I have not seen a dead bird or a dead bat anywhere.
I haven't seen any dead birds.
What about the wildlife? Tell me if the wildlife has been disturbed.
No, it hasn't. We see plenty of deer back there by the windmills. They're always there. Hasn't bothered them.
We're big deer hunters here, and it hasn't bothered the deer population at all. I see deer on the hill every day.
Do wind farms lower property values?
Well, the facts say otherwise. In a study that has looked at the value of properties for several wind projects around the United States, including a project in Madison County in New York State, it has shown that property values have either stayed level or comparable with other properties without wind projects in the area, or property values have increased. There has not been evidence of property values decreasing as a result of wind projects.
And I've not seen any values gone down. I'm really, as chairman of the board here, I've not seen anybody really come to me and complain about the windmills.
How does the establishment of wind farms affect the local economy?
Wind turbines not only benefit the landowners who are directly impacted by a project, but also by the community through tax payments or payments in lieu of taxes. And in many townships in New York State, tax revenues have increased dramatically, on order of 25-50% or more, from the contributions from a single wind project.
You have large wind projects in the works for New York, like the Maple Ridge project, and it's going to represent investments of hundreds of millions of dollars in communities, many of them in upstate New York, where those kind of investments are rarely seen.
It'll be tax dollars for the municipalities, the town, the county, the school districts. There'll be no kids going to school from these turbines, no road cuts, no trash to the landfill. The tax dollars that will come in from these turbines will not cost these municipalities 1 penny to keep them up, and it'll be open spaces.
Most wind farms are built in rural areas where agriculture on family farms is a way of life.
They're extremely compatible. My cows graze right up the bottom of them. They're not the least bit phased by them one way or another.
The amount of space that a wind project actually occupies on farmland is a very, very small fraction, typically 5% of the land area. And that allows the remainder of the area to be farmed as it had been. And so revenues typically increase significantly for farmers when they co-locate wind turbines on farmland.
I would guess somewhere around 6 or 7% of my gross yearly income comes from these machines. However, in some years, that's 96 or 7% of my profit.
And if they can help support that family farm and keep it productive for another generation, that's a real positive side of windmills. We look at them more as an agricultural crop. You don't have to water them, you don't have to weed them. and whatever they harvest, you get a percentage of it. So it's a positive direction.
And this way, with a steady income, it helps pay your taxes, it helps pay some of your bills that you normally would have problems covering with just a milk check.
So, are wind farms pretty or ugly?
From a quality standpoint, some people will look at those turbines and think, oh, they're unseemly, they take away from the ridge, or they take away from the environment. They prefer it natural. Other people look at them and think that they're a thing of beauty, that they're majestic, that they're very interesting to look at, interesting to watch.
I remember going to see the Fenner wind project for the first time and being stunned by the beauty of it. You know, these beautiful rolling farmlands with the turbines, sort of peaceful and elegant, and creating a large amount of electricity with absolutely no air pollution. So my response when I saw these wind turbines for the first time was, this is a miracle.
And like all the neighbors down through the valley and stuff, nobody really says anything about the windmills. You know, they just, you know, just like everybody else, you know, they think they're neat, they're something to see, and when everybody wakes up in the morning, that's one of the first things that we look for.
They certainly grow on you, and they actually don't harm our view at all. We are accustomed to them. We enjoy watching them. There's never been a noise issue.
By and large, most communities embrace these wind projects as their own. They're proud of them. And people want to see more in their communities.
Though turbines can be very pretty, especially in the morning when the sun rises, you can see the turbines above the land and they have a real pretty color. In the evenings, in a sunset, with the red sky behind them, there's not a more beautiful sunset than with the windmills in front of it.
The burning of gas and oil to make electricity produces greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. But the burning of coal causes real health problems. There are 12 operating coal-fired plants in New York.
Well, using coal comes at a price. There's the air pollution that comes from the power plants. It causes smog, it causes acid rain, it causes soot pollution. And there's also costs with mining, transporting it. So it's a serious environmental problem. Here in New York, 30 counties fail health-based air quality standards. So there's millions of New Yorkers living in places where the air isn't healthy enough. And coal is a big part of that problem.
The coal-fired power plants, particularly, more so than the natural gas, release a lot of sulfur oxides and nitric oxides, which actually form sulfuric acid and nitric acid. We can breathe these in, and we're getting all this acid in our lungs, and of course it damages our lungs.
And to me, the more troubling thing is that you have whole lakes in the Adirondacks that have been sterilized by acidic precipitation. And that's, you know, largely a result of burning fossil fuels. And in all fairness, that's automobiles as well as power plants, but power plants are a significant contributor to that.
Now, there's yet another contaminant that has different effects that comes from burning, especially burning coal, and that is mercury.
It's a problem for pregnant women, for women of reproductive age, for consuming fish with mercury in it. So that's a problem that we're more and more concerned about.
If you're an individual with asthma and you have an asthma attack because the air is too polluted that day, you're either missing work or school. That's a huge cost to society. Or if you're a worker and you need to stay home to take care of that child with an asthma attack, or a loved one that has chronic lung disease and can't get around, that's a lost work day. All these costs add up.
I've had the pleasure to visit with wind power experts, town administrators, and ordinary people. They all love their communities and their way of life. They already live with wind energy. The turbines are part of their community. Here's what they wanted to share with you.
I would ask anybody to come visit and see the windmills.
I would really tell people to really keep an open mind and don't base your opinion on just what you hear, but do the research.
I would tell them to come out and see for themselves. There's not a problem. We've lived here for 4 years and it's never bothered me, so it shouldn't bother them.
I encourage them to come and see my wind farm. See for yourself that it's not noisy and has not hurt my environment. And I'm pleased that we did it.
After living near them for the past 3 years and having them become a part of my daily life, they've done nothing but enhance my life. They haven't intruded upon my lifestyle or the wildlife I live near, and I'm totally happy that they're here.
My message would be go for it. The experience I have had from windmills has been all good. And I think we as people in the United States have to become more self-efficient with our own resources that we have.